My fiancé decided to have fun before our wedding. My love life was good and full of happiness until it wasn't. I don't know if I was the one with a problem or love couldn't handle my happiness anymore. Have you ever felt like you were suffocating from what you are experiencing? If there is anyone who was once in my shoes, how did you deal with the ordeal? Did you leave everything as is, or you took a decision that you thought was only best for you? I am 28, grew up without parents. They died in a very tragic accident years ago. I was 14 when I was told about their tragic accident. So I was left with my big sister, who is 5 years older than me, who then took a role of being my parent at the age of 19. I was grateful for the funds my parents had left for us to further our studies and to be able to live till we could stand for ourselves. The funds that they had left for my education were enough to push me till I graduated in university. A couple of years later, my sister and I were on a vacation in Cape Town, South Africa, where I met my ex-fiancé, F25. I saw her in one of the restaurants. She was with her friend having lunch. My eyes couldn't stop looking at her when my sister noticed the way I was looking at this perfect, caramel and natural lady. She laughed at me and told me to approach her. I didn't want to look forward and get rejected, so I stayed back till they decided to leave. My sister forced me to go to her. My knees were shaking, and I didn't know how she was going to see me. I spotted them waiting for a ride. I took some breathing exercises before I went to where they were standing. I greeted and introduced myself, and I asked for her numbers. She blankly refused with them. Her friend gave me her Instagram account handle and told me to check her there. Her IG account was private, so I sent her a request to follow her, which took the whole week to get accepted. During my school days, I was a nerd and focused more on my books. I didn't have time for girls, but I had a childhood girlfriend, whom I started dating at the age of 13. We started chatting after a while, getting to know each other. I asked her out on a date, but she rejected me and told me that she didn't trust strangers. I understood her fears because there was a lot of human trafficking happening all around the world. It was not easy to just trust a person, especially from another country. My sister and I went back to the States, but I kept communicating with her. We became friends. She was then comfortable enough to tell me anything. A couple of months went by. I was working for this big architectural firm in New York as a building planner and designer. I got a client that needed a building planner for his upcoming mall building project. It was a South African real estate and construction company. It was my first big project to get in Africa. Getting the project didn't only gain me connections, but I also got a chance to meet with the lady who caught my eyes again, as her friend, of course. She gave me a hard time when I asked her to be my girlfriend, but at least she agreed to go on a date with me. That was progress, right? She gave me a chance after 3 dates and came up with a 90 days rule before taking the next step. I respected her decision because it gave us time to get to know each other more. We dated through socials and calls for a couple of months. It was a bit hard because we were on different continents. We tried by all means to communicate with each other every day. The following year, she got a filming scholarship from New York Film Academy. Things got a bit better for us, and I got a chance to see her every day. After the 90 days rule was over, we took our relationship to the next level. I loved her so much. We shared our future goals and everything. She was a person who liked building communication and connections. She was fun, spoke her mind, but down to earth and intelligent too. I asked her to move in with me 3 months after she had moved to the States. I proposed to her not so long after she had moved in. I was happy. I had everything I wanted and needed. What more would I have asked for? My lady was always natural and original in everything. No makeup, no wigs or fake whatever that those influencers do. She told me to loosen up and enjoy life, telling me that you only live once. Enjoy life while you still can, because you don't know what tomorrow holds. So let's enjoy ourselves while we still can. We then started going out a lot, exploring nightclubs in our free time. Time passed. She started going out alone a lot, saying she was going to study or she was going to do a project, she won't be coming back, and she would crash at a friend's house. I trusted her. Her dedication to her schoolwork was amazing. Her everyday phrase was, "I don't want you to marry someone who is not educated and broke. I want to be a rich career-driven wife and build our family's legacy together." She was full of enthusiasm and determination. To cut the story short, my sister organized an engagement party for us. They used to call me a nerd at school. My sister was the only friend I had. Till I got Jess, she changed everything. The party was intimate with only few of my colleagues, my fiancé's friends, and family members. Things started changing after our engagement party. I noticed her behavior before our premarital party. She was always on her phone, chatting with whoever she was chatting with. That made me suspect that she was cheating because she had become distant. When I raised my concerns, she would brush me off and tell me that I was overthinking. I trusted her and I was certain that she wouldn't do anything that would jeopardize our relationship. Or would she? So one day we decided to stay indoors, spending some quality time together. We had already started with wedding preparations. We were going through our gallery from the time we started dating. We still had to prepare for our premarital party later on. Jessica went to fetch some more snacks for us when her phone rang and a name, Peter, popped up. I told her that she had a call. She rushed in to drop it, but I had already answered and put it on loudspeaker. The guy greeted and asked if she was ready to have some fun before she got off the market. She just dropped the call without answering the guy. The guy even called her beautiful. That made me suspicious of who this Peter guy was who called my woman beautiful and asked if she was ready to have fun before she got off the market. The day was ruined. I got curious and wanted to know more about this kind of fun the guy was talking about. I couldn't question her, my thoughts were racing. You know, curiosity killed a cat. So I asked Jessica who this Peter guy was and what their relationship was. She told me that Peter was a friend whom she met in college and he was her project partner. I saw it through her that there was more than just being friends from college and project partners. So I planned to bug her phone. I downloaded a tracking app that would track her phone's location, but I had to first try and get her phone and search for any conversations. I couldn't get to the conclusion of being cheated on, so I had to check their text conversations. I wanted to know who this guy was and what was really going on between them. I couldn't let insecurities ruin my plan and our premarital ceremony. So when Jessica was in the bathroom, I got a chance to take her phone and search for any tangible evidence that I would use to confront her. I found nothing, which meant she had either deleted all their conversations or they were communicating through phone calls only. Giving up without any evidence was not on the list, so I continued with my tracking plan. I was in a mix of anxious anticipation and hope that I would gather all the evidence I needed before jumping to conclusion. A moment later, Jessica came down, looking good and ready to go. She had told me that she was going to her friend's house because she had planned a small bachelorette for only her and a few ladies. I had to act like I didn't have any problem with that. I was anxious about the outcome of her plans, so I switched on the tracking app on my phone. I wanted to know if she was really going to her friend's house, of which indeed she was. She didn't stay long at her friend's house, which made me more suspicious of where she was going because there was no way the bachelorette would have lasted less than an hour. I continued monitoring her phone's location. My emotions got high as I was waiting for the confirmation of my suspicions. The tracking app showed me that she was going to a hotel not far from where our premarital party would take place. My curiosity told me that she was meeting up with him. Why would she disrespect our day like that? I called my sister and told her that I would meet up with them at the venue a bit later. I drove to the same hotel Jessica had gone to and went to the hotel's restaurant and sat where there was a clear view to see everything. So I ordered a drink to pass time, and 30 minutes later, I heard this guy talking to the reception lady. He introduced himself as Peter and was there for his girlfriend, Jessica Williams. The lady made a call before directing the guy to Jessica's room. I wasn't sure if he was talking about my Jessica, but there was only one Jessica Williams in the hotel. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. My fiancé would never be friends or book a room with the man who looked old enough to be her father. She respected herself, or that's what I thought. Was this the same guy who she said was a friend from college and a project partner? Curiosity got the better of me. I had come up with a plan. I ordered a few beers. I was not going to do this sober, so I had to be at least tipsy. I didn't know if I would handle the truth when I uncover it, or maybe I should have just let things be. If you were in my situation, what would you do? I prayed to find nothing that would jeopardize our relationship and ruin the night that was supposed to be our wedding night. I had to find a way to get into that room. An hour later, I called my sister to come to the hotel not far from the venue where the premarital party was held. I had to use her to get at least a glimpse of what was going on in that room. I was scared that whatever we were to find there was going to change my sister's relationship with Jessica. A part of me wanted to just leave everything as it is and trust my soon-to-be wife, but I wanted to ease my consciousness and curiosity. My emotions were high and I didn't know how to control them. I wanted to get inside once and for all, but at the same time, my conscience was telling me to confront her about it after our wedding. A few moments later, my sister showed up and asked what I was doing at a hotel when I was supposed to be at the party. So I told her that I was waiting for Jessica. She was finishing up some filming projects, but she had been in the room for too long. I asked for her help to speak to the reception lady to let us in just to make sure she was still okay. As expected, my sister didn't believe my lie. We went to the reception lady. She introduced herself as Jessica's sister and introduced me as her fiancé. She asked the lady if we could get access into the room that she was in. The lady tried telling my sister that the person we were looking for was busy, so we pleaded with her until she gave in. My sister's questioning look made me uncomfortable, but I cared less. All I wanted was to get access into that room and see what was going on, then maybe I would have been at ease knowing the truth. The reception lady asked one of the hotel keepers to show us where Jessica was. My sister knocked on the door and we waited for someone to open at least, but no one did. We kept on knocking until my sister suspected that something might be wrong with Jess, so she asked the hotel keeper to open for us because there was no way someone was not going to hear the knocks. The hotel keeper then went to the reception lady and asked if the room number she gave us was the correct one, of which she confirmed that it was the room that Jessica was in. When the hotel keeper opened, I was the first one to get in. What I saw almost gave me a heart attack. I never thought I would ever witness my fiancé doing such things, especially to another man looking like a possessed demon. I didn't care about my sister's presence. Tears clouded my eyes. I couldn't believe what I had seen. It was heartbreaking to see my fiancé having such a sexual play with another man. It seemed as if I was looking at a hooker or a stripper. Seeing my woman taking charge of a sexual act with a man 2 times older than her. It was a very disgusting thing to watch. She looked pretty high. I couldn't recognize the person I was seeing. I asked myself who she was because that was not my fiancé. I walked out trying to digest what I saw. My sister came to me disappointed and shocked. She asked why I lied, and if what we saw inside the room was still a project I told her about. I didn't know what to tell my sister. My tongue was tied. I couldn't answer her, and the only thing that rang in my mind was fun and the grunts of that old man. My sister called the cops because the man was old and Jess was out of it. She was disappointed. She had accepted Jessica not only as my girl but as a little sister. On the other hand, I was more shuddered than angry. I thought it was all a dream and someone would wake me up and tell me that it was a nightmare. She was so innocent, or must I say she looked innocent, but she fooled me. It angered me. She had masked her troubles and resorted to drugs and old men. I thought we shared everything from our weaknesses to our strengths, including our sexual desires. She made me believe that she was going to her bachelorette party that was hosted by her friend, knowing very well that she wanted her friend to cover up for her so she can do her abominable act. To think that I was ready to start a family with Jessica. The following day was supposed to be about us, as we were going to be officially Mr. and Mrs. Washington. They say men don't cry, but I cried. I regretted getting into that room, but I was relieved that I had uncovered the truth. I found the truth about the meaning of fun the old man Peter was talking about. I couldn't leave her there alone while I saw how high she was on drugs. I didn't know that my fiancé was on drugs. Was I that ignorant to a point that I couldn't even see the changes in my fiancé's life? I blamed myself for the way she was. Maybe I was too pushy, so she resorted to drugs. She had started going out a lot, lying about her whereabouts. The red flags were there. All I wanted was for her to be open in our relationship. She should have told me what she was going through instead of taking drugs and sleeping with old men. My sister told me that we had to rush her to the hospital because she was having a seizure. 2 days after she got discharged, we tried talking about what went on. After weeks of trying to fix our relationship, I decided to call it quits. I couldn't trust her anymore. After Jessica, I never got into any relationship till today. I hated her but hated myself more. Did I make the right decision to give up on her? Any advice?
Ruthless husband gave me some unique punishment for my cheating behavior. When I created my Reddit account, I never thought the day would come when I would sit down in front of my computer and write about myself. I used to read the life experiences of other people and open my mouth at the things they wrote. Some of the stories I read were funny and some were emotional. The funny thing is that I now have a life experience to share, but mine is far from funny. Please bear with me if this ends up being too long. My emotions are getting the best of me, and this is my way of controlling myself. I am not here to talk about how innocent the first am. I am far from innocent and I caused most of what happened to me, but it is what it is. I just realized that I am married to a very wicked man. He is ruthless and does not have a forgiving spirit. I did not know that the man I have been living with is so wicked. How could anyone treat their own wife with so much hatred? Yes, I cheated on him and I have been cheating on him for a very long time. I know that writing this on Reddit will bring me a lot of judgment and curses, but I am ready for them. A lot of people will tell me how stupid and heartless I am. I know this because I used to read the comments under the posts of other people. Now that I am the one in the position to be judged, I understand it is not that easy. My husband, M43, and I, F33, have been married for 10 years now. I never planned on getting married at 23, but my life did not go as planned, so I had to settle down. I met my husband when I was 20 years old. I was already in college back then, and I had a lot of friends. I come from a family of 5. I have an older brother and a stepsister. My father had gotten another woman pregnant while he was still married to my mom, so I have a little sister. The old man was poor, but he could not control himself, so he brought in a liability. I don't mean my little sister is a liability, but the consequences around her birth were. My father could not even pay for our dinner back then. He worked at his friend's car wash business and barely earned money. My mother was and still is the sole provider of the family. She was a high school teacher but took many side jobs to sustain the family. We were barely managing to survive, so when my father brought in another child, life became difficult. I only got into college because my older brother made sure I did. I made some friends in college and was able to blend in. College was like my escape from home because my parents had a screaming match every evening. It was either about money or something very unnecessary. I met my husband one day in college when he came to fix something in our college. He's a technician and was the college's usual choice when they wanted something fixed. To be honest, I did not look at my husband twice the first day I saw him. He was not someone that interested me. I didn't even notice him until one of my friends told me he had been staring at me. It was so funny that I laughed out loud that day. I thought my friends were crazy because I knew I had no interest in being with a technician. I had no business with him. My husband walked up to me one day and told me he liked me. I was with my friends that day and it took everything in me not to laugh in his face. I do not consider myself hot or sexy, but I was confident enough to know I did not find my husband attractive in any way. I told him I had a boyfriend and left him standing in the hallway. When I got home that day, I narrated everything to my mother and she laughed at the situation too. I did not tell her he was a technician. I just told her a guy who had to be a dozen years older than me asked me out. At 20 years old, I already dated more than 2 guys. I was far from being a virgin at that age, but I was not a slut. I still had some self-respect left in me. My husband did not approach me after that day and we lost all contact because he stopped coming to our college for repairs. I didn't notice his absence and went back to living my life. The next time I met him was almost 6 months later. I was in my second year of college and followed my brother to get some tools for the bike he bought. I did not feel the need to ask my brother how he got a bike because I assumed he had enough money for it. He was sponsoring me to college, so I imagined he had enough for himself. I met my husband at the tool shop that day. He was also getting some tools. My brother greeted him like they had known each other for years. They did not. Men just feel the need to give a bro hug to a total stranger because they were looking for the same set of tools. To be honest, I was embarrassed to see him there because of how I turned him down before. He smiled at me and asked how I was, and I asked him why he stopped coming to our college. He told me he got busy and was starting his own mechanic shop. That was why he was at the store to get some tools. We spoke for a while before I left with my brother. I ran into him many times after that, and so we exchanged phone numbers. We started as friends, and he clearly told me he wanted more, but I was not ready for a relationship with him. I got the shock of my life when my brother told me he could no longer fund me to college. I cried myself to sleep that day. My brother told me he ran out of money, but the truth was that he had been stealing his boss's money. Yes, my brother had been stealing from his boss. His boss did not notice until my brother got the bike. He got suspicious because he knew how much my brother received as a salary, and that was how he got caught. We were in debt and had no money to survive. I did not tell my husband what was going on in my family because I was too ashamed. We were just friends back then, but my husband asked me out some weeks after that. I don't want to be one to lie, so I will tell the truth. I started dating my husband because I was broke. He earned enough to feed himself and buy me gifts. I am not ashamed to say the truth because I had no choice. My family was in debt and I was on the verge of dropping out of college. I was desperate for survival, so I stuck to the only saving grace I had. I finally told him about my college fees, and he asked me to give him time. Weeks later, he gave me the money for my college fees. I was so grateful for that, and I got a side job at a restaurant so I could make some money. I got married to my husband while I was still in college. He proposed to me 1 year later, and I said yes. He was the support system in my life, and I could not say no after everything he did for me. My parents also convinced me to get married to him and not lose the opportunity. I know some people will come to the comments and ask me why I did not just get married to a wealthy millionaire if I was broke. This is real life, not Hollywood. Marrying a rich man in the real world is not easy. You don't just run into a rich man who falls in love with you and marries you instantly. I went with the safest option, and that was my husband. He told me he was ready to settle down, and I had no problem with settling down too. I don't have Kim Kardashian's looks, so the chances of me running Kanye West were slim. After we got married, I was able to finish college 2 years later. My husband was not the extra romantic type. He did buy me flowers and take me on romantic dates. He never did any of those things before we got married, so I didn't really expect any of it. I found it hard to get a job even with my college degree, so I started working at the restaurant I used to work in before full-time. I did not love my husband, but I cared for him. Our marriage was just a marriage. We were not head over heels for each other. He cared and provided for me, and I did the same. I gave birth to my first child 5 years ago, a baby girl. I stopped working during that time because my husband insisted we did exclusive breastfeeding. It was exhausting to breastfeed and work at the same time, so I became a housewife. Even after my daughter was old enough to go to the nursery, I did not resume working. It was my decision because I found the restaurant very exhausting. My husband did not have a problem with it at all. He even sent some money to my family once in a while. We lived in a rented apartment, but we fed very well. It was a huge upgrade from the life I had before I married him. I got my first job as a teacher at an elementary school, and I was happy to finally leave the house. I found the job easier than the one at the restaurant. The school is where my cheating story began. I cannot mention the name of the school for personal reasons, so please bear with me. I had a crush on one of the teachers in the school. I can already tell how much backlash this will get. Yes, I had a crush on a fellow colleague at work even though I was married. My husband is 10 years older than me. He doesn't like most of the things I like. I still feel young and I don't want to live a boring life. It was my choice, but I got married at a very young age. I still had a lot about life I had not seen, so when my colleague asked me out, I accepted. He knew I was married, but he still asked me out anyway. We dated privately because I did not want anyone at school to find out what was going on. I know I should not have cheated on my husband, but I did. I wanted to feel the excitement my marriage lacked. It had nothing to do with how my husband treated me. It was just a decision I made. I know. I am a loose woman, but what could I do? I could not resist the temptation. I dated my colleague for months before we broke up. There was no particular reason for it. We just decided to end things. I did not end my cheating there. I met someone else and we started dating. In the beginning, I felt very ashamed of myself, but as time went on, I couldn't care less. My husband did not seem to notice any of it, so I continued. The money I earned from elementary school was not much, but it was still money I could use for important things. My husband is the sole provider of the house, and I did not use my money for anything. It is not something I am ashamed of because I believe that a man should be the one providing for the family. I promised myself not to end up like my mother, who slaved herself away just to help my father, and he ended up cheating on her. I saved all the money I earned in my bank account. I did not really know what I was saving for, but I knew I wanted to start buying bags and things I could not afford before. I had been saving for 4 years and never touched the money unless my family needed help or I wanted to get myself something new. It might seem unbelievable, but it is the truth. My husband provided for the house from the little he earned. He did not complain, and I did not think he should have a reason to complain. Maybe I am too heartless in my judgment, but that is as a result of the trauma I saw my mother go through. In a way, I do feel like I am like my father, who betrayed my mother even when she fed him. The only difference is that I did not get pregnant and bring the child to my husband's house. Did I feel guilty? Yes, a part of me did feel guilty, but that was until my husband decided to be wicked. I thought I was not going to get caught, but somehow, my husband found out I was cheating. I did not have texts or phone calls that could have implied I was cheating, but he still found out. I noticed some changes in the way my husband related with me for weeks. He stopped eating the food I prepared and preferred to eat out. 1 week ago, my husband came home early and told me he needed to use my phone to call someone since they were not picking up his calls. I found it weird because my husband never used my phone before, but I unlocked it and gave it to him. I had no reason to worry because I did not have any chats or calls that suggested I was cheating. I did not even save my partner's number in my phone. I did not stand there and wait for him to use it because I did not want to act suspicious. I went to the kitchen and pretended I was busy making a salad. He called me when he was done and gave me back my phone. I forgot all about that encounter because there was nothing suspicious, but something happened 3 days ago. I got a debit alert of over $10,000. That's all the money I had been saving for 4 years. I thought I was seeing stars at first, but it was true. All my money was wiped except for the remaining $200. I thought I was running crazy and I could barely breathe. That was practically my life savings. I ran to my bank to ask what happened. They told me there was no suspicious activity and that it was just a withdrawal. I thought I had been scammed, but the truth was that my husband was the one who made the withdrawal from my bank. He took my card PIN from my phone. I can't be the only one who saves my passwords in my phone in case I forget, right? Well, it cost me a lot. I wanted to scream and scratch anything because I could not understand what happened. Everything I worked for was gone. When my husband came back that day, I did not waste time in accusing him of stealing from me. He laughed in my face and told me that was what I got for cheating on him. He found out I was cheating from a friend of his who worked at my partner's place of work. I used to visit my partner at his place of work because I thought it was safer there. He was aware for a long time but kept it a secret so he could hatch his plan and pay me back. He accused me of using him to provide for my family and feed myself while I cheated and saved my money. If you are wondering how he knew about the money I saved, let me tell you how he knew. He knew I had to be saving because I was not providing for the house. My husband knew how much I earned from my job, so he took revenge on me. He left the house after laughing in my face and has not returned since then. I might be a cheat, but my husband is heartless. He stole from me. I saved that money for 4 good years. That's all I have, yet he took it as compensation for me cheating. I am so angry and worried, and I don't know what to do. I don't even know if my marriage is over. Update. I can't believe that it's already been 2 months since I made this post. Many of you cussed the life out of me in the comments, lol. I have been tagged as the cheating opportunist of the century. A lot of people showed their disgust for me, but there were also people that could relate to my desperation. I'm happy to know I am not alone. Nobody is perfect, and I am far from being perfect. I cheated and I regret it, but I don't regret taking the safest option and marrying the man I believed could provide for me. I needed to survive. My marriage could not survive because honestly, I could not see my husband the same way. He stole from me and I cheated on him. We were broken beyond repair. I was left with $200 to survive. I was broke. My husband served me divorce papers 3 weeks later and gave me a month to vacate the apartment. My parents hated me for ruining the marriage that brought them money, so they were not ready to accept another liability. I had to beg a colleague to crash at her place till I received my salary for the month. My child spent the weekend at my place and spent the whole week with her father because I cannot afford to provide for both of us yet. I am no longer with my partner and I am single and undergoing divorce. When you think of a miserable broke woman, think of me. LOL. I'm still trying to get myself back together. It's a process, but I'll get there. Maybe I needed to part with my husband to find my own way in life without taking shortcuts. Thank you to everyone that has taken the time to read my story and speak on it. I'm glad I shared my story with Reddit.
My cheating fiancé got karma. Her affair partner had an incurable STD. They say, karma's a bitch, and luckily, my unfaithful fiancé got a taste of it. My fiancé, Jennifer, I'm 25, and I, MT28, have been engaged for over 1 year now. I met her 3 years ago at a family event. It was my grandmother's birthday, and she instructed everyone to invite as many people as they knew. She wanted to have a feast with many people because she was celebrating her 80th birthday. My grandparents are wealthy people. It's the kind of wealth that you cannot really waste. They own a jewelry company, name withheld for personal reasons, that is extremely successful. I believe that one of the secrets to their success is their ability to say no at all times. They are economic people who spend on a budget, even with their level of wealth. My parents work at their company too, and they are almost as wealthy as them. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to show off how rich my family is. This is an important part of my experience with my fiancé. Yes, money was involved. A few days to my grandma's birthday, she instructed all her grandchildren to bring at least 5 people to her party. My grandmother has 12 grandchildren, so you can imagine how many people were present. This list is excluding her children's guests and their own guests. On my grandma's birthday, it looked like a carnival. There were over 300 people present. It was a party that had a lasting effect on my life. My siblings and I dressed our best because we did not want to disobey her request for us to look presentable. We liked parties, but we just didn't think our grandma could throw a youthful party. I did not look forward to the party, and honestly, I thought it would bore me to sleep. But I was wrong, very wrong. I still remember how shocked I was when I walked into the hall. It looked like a bachelorette party. The music, food, drinks, lighting, and decor were everything beyond my imagination. My grandma definitely had taste. I concluded that the stingy woman wanted to be generous on her 80th birthday, LOL. There were so many people in attendance that I actually spotted some of my teachers when I was in high school. It was a refreshing night and a surprising one too. After going around and welcoming guests, I decided to mingle with my age group since I was bored of laughing with grannies. Yes, I was bored. My brother, Darius, asked me to come meet some of his college friends. Darius is just a year older than me. I was in my 3rd year of college while he was in his last. We attended different colleges, so it was nice to meet his friends. That was the moment I met Jennifer. She stood timidly behind her friends and only spoke when she was spoken to. At that moment, I knew she had to be the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. She had delicate features, and her calm demeanor only made me drawn to her. Back then, I had my fair share of girlfriends and had dated different women before, but I felt quite drawn to Jennifer. I remember staring at her for a very long time, yet she did not even notice me. One by one, I said hello to my brother's friends, and then I got to her. I asked her what her name was, and that was when she looked up and met my gaze. She looked confused and even turned around to see if I was talking to someone else. When I made no move to leave, she told me her name. I tried making conversation with her, but Jennifer was determined to ignore me. You know that saying, men like to chase. In my case, it was true. The more she ignored me, the more I wanted to know more about her. I did not even pay attention to the party anymore. I was interested in the innocent petite lady that was determined to ignore my existence. Innocent my foot. Darius noticed my actions and pulled me to the side that night. My brother and I are very close, so he could tell that I was attracted to her. I asked him if he was friends with her, and he said no. He explained to me that she was a transfer student who just came to the college. I was quite surprised that she transferred in her last year of college. Darius said they did not speak much since she's always reserved, and that the only reason he invited her was because she was friends with his girlfriend. Darius could already tell I liked her, so he advised me not to force her into speaking to me. I did not have a problem with that. I concluded that if she wanted to speak to me, she would on her own terms. That night, I gave Jennifer her space and proceeded to enjoy the party. After some time, I completely forgot about Jennifer. I had so much fun that I did not think about the girl that grabbed my attention anymore. My grandma later called all her grandchildren for a toast during the party. We grabbed our glasses of wine and joined her on the stage. It was a nice moment because even though the woman is stingy, she loves her grandchildren. The night came to an end, and it was time to escort the guests out and give them their parting gift. I recall seeing Jennifer whisper something to her friend before pointing at me. They seemed to be in a serious conversation. I never really thought about it much back then, but now I understand what that conversation was all about. Immediately after their conversation, Jennifer walked towards me and stood right in front of me. She had a friendly smile on her face as she complimented the party and our hosting skills. I can still remember how shocked and confused I was when she did that. Barely 2 hours before that, she ignored my existence. Why did she suddenly feel the need to come up to me and initiate a conversation? That was the question that ran through my mind at that moment. I'm a straight talker, and I always feel the need to express how I feel. Back then that night, I asked her why she suddenly came up to me to initiate a conversation. Yes, I asked her that. She laughed it off and said she needed time to get used to the environment before, and that was why she was not responsive. I believed her right away and was back to crushing on her. We spoke for a while before my grandma called for me. I only realized that I forgot to ask for her number when I went to bed that night. I can still recall how pissed off and disappointed I was when I got into my room. I lost the opportunity to ask for her number when I had the perfect opportunity. 2 weeks after that day, something unusual happened. I received a Facebook friend request from Jennifer. I know how that sounds. I should have been relieved that I had a way to contact her, but I was not. It felt strange to me because my Facebook timeline had no real information about me. I used a different name, picture of a car, and just randomly posted anime memes. Not even my own brother could tell it was my Facebook account. I didn't even have any of my family members as friends. I was never a social media person, so I just wanted an account where I could post anonymously. So when I got the friend request from Jennifer, I had to do a double take. It felt quite mysterious. I spent minutes thinking about it before I finally accepted the friend request. What was more strange was the fact that she sent me a message addressing me with my real name. Hi, Ryan. I found it strange, but after some time, I brushed it off. I told myself I should feel grateful that I did not have to go through the hassle of looking for her contact. I could have asked Darius to get Jennifer's number from his girlfriend, but Darius and I had a bro code where we swore never to help each other in dating a girl. This was because none of us wanted to be responsible if the relationship ended up in shambles. Well, mine did. From chatting on Facebook all night, Jennifer and I started calling each other often. We went on friendly dates to get ice cream, and sometimes we'd go jogging together. I liked Jennifer a lot, and so I tried my best to see her every day even though I was busy. Jennifer was great. She was extremely nice to my friends and family, and she even offered to help my grandma with baking. That was a big deal for my grandma. Jennifer was the definition of a perfect girlfriend with no faults. She was caring and loving. I fell in love with her all over again anytime we met. There were no red flags at all. No red flags are red flags, trust me. As time went on, I knew that I had fallen too deeply for her. Before I met her, I never saw the need to have a serious girlfriend. I was in college and just wanted to have fun and explore, but Jennifer made me fall deeply for her, so deeply that the thought of being with another woman disgusted me. 1 year later, she graduated from college, and I got into the final year of college. Jennifer told me she was worried about moving too far away from me for her internship, so I asked my grandpa to pull some strings and let her have her internship in the jewelry store. My grandpa did not think twice before making it happen. He also liked Jennifer and believed she was a good influence on me. A few months later, I began to notice some changes in Jennifer. She would randomly accuse me of cheating for no reason at all. At first, I found it cute because I liked the idea of her getting jealous, but with time, it became annoying. She would stop picking my calls and completely ghost me for weeks. Yes, weeks. I gave her the space she needed and never attempted to go see her at the jewelry store. My grandparents were very strict about work, so I let her be. I did not want to be the reason she did not get a good review. We grandparents are extremely strict. Jennifer took my good intentions for granted and started creating random problems in our relationship. Sometimes she would ask me to send her money so she could buy a new dress and go to dinner with me. After sending the money, Jennifer would switch off her phone and ghost me completely. The fact that I loved her very much made me oblivious to her emotional blackmails. I was raised to be a gentleman, so anytime she cried and accused me of not understanding her, I would feel guilty and try to make it up to her. She made me feel like I was the one making the relationship difficult. 6 months later, Jennifer was back to her normal self and we were happy again. I also graduated from college and began my internship at a hospital in town name withheld for personal reasons. I also had a side job I was doing that brought in money. Another 6 months later, I proposed to Jennifer. Many people thought I moved too fast, but I honestly didn't care. At that time, we only knew each other for 2 years, but it felt like forever because we saw each other almost every single day. I was just 27 and she was 24, but we were ready to commit on that level. I didn't really plan on getting married soon after our engagement because we still had our careers to pursue. The engagement was the beginning of my problems with Jennifer. The innocent, calm, and delicate girl I fell in love with became this rude, conceited, and violent person. Jennifer would curse at me, ignore my siblings when she came over, and even went as far as rolling her eyes when my parents tried to correct her. My family could tell that I was slowly regretting my decision, and they did not want that to happen. I am a very intentional man. I was raised to be mature and thoughtful. The reason I was so drawn to Jennifer was never solely because of her beauty. I was drawn to her personality, the personality I thought she had. 3 months later, I began to withdraw from the relationship. I stopped texting her regularly, and I even stopped seeing her altogether. She was still regarded as my fiancé, but we did not even hold hands. Jennifer seemed to like development, and she went on with her life. During those months, I focused on my internship and the side job I had. My parents really wanted me to finish well, so I could get my doctorate degree early. I was also quite interested in being a doctor and working in hospitals, so I worked harder than ever. 4 months later, I got the shock of my life. That morning, I'd just finished having breakfast when Jennifer stormed into my room with teary eyes. I was honestly shocked to see her because we had basically lost all contact. I even forgot that I had a fiancé. Jennifer told me she urgently needed my help. Of course, she was my fiancé. I was not going to sit there and pretend she was not. I honestly thought she was hurt, so I asked what was wrong. Jennifer told me her brother's, Greg, was really sick and needed urgent medical attention. I was confused. Yes, I was, but I did not have time to be. I remember grabbing my car keys and asking her to take me to the hospital where he was being treated. When I got to the hospital, I allowed Jennifer to lead me to where he was being attended to. The guy that laid on the hospital bed looked quite sick and weak. As a doctor myself, I asked her if he had gotten tests done yet. Jennifer told me the doctors were to deliver the test results that same day. I decided to wait there until the test results came. Greg looked too weak for what Jennifer described as effervescere. I wanted to know what was wrong with him. So Jennifer and I patiently waited for the doctor's test results. I even paid off the bills and bought them food to eat. I also gave Jennifer some money to keep in case they needed anything. I still saw him as my brother-in-law to be, even though I was thinking of ending things with Jennifer. Later that evening, the doctor arrived with the test results. He wanted to speak to Greg alone and reveal the results to him first, but Greg insisted that the doctor spoke in front of us because we were family. The test results practically took the breath out of me for a second. Greg had been diagnosed with an incurable ST. I was so shocked that I did not say a single word. I still remember how Greg screamed and asked the doctor if it was a prank. The doctor told him it was not, and that he needed urgent treatment. Greg practically broke into tears and pulled his hair. I expected the reaction from him, but I did not expect to see Jennifer fall to her knees and punch Greg on the legs. I still remember her exact words. "You monster, how could you? You knew you had stayed, yet you slept with me all these months without protection." I was shocked to say the least. I did not understand what she meant at first until it all suddenly came rushing to me. Greg was not her brother. He was her lover. He was the man she had been cheating on me with, the man I just foolishly paid $5,000 for. I did not wait one more second there. I just left the hospital and drove home. The last time Jennifer and I had been intimate was over a year ago, and we always used protection, but I needed to be sure. I got tested that same day, and after a few days, I tested negative. That was 3 months ago. My family were the most surprised. They were thankful that I dodged a bullet with Jennifer. I later discovered that Jennifer had been stealing from my family's jewelry store. She was only with me for money. Everything was planned by her. Even the night at the party when she came to say goodbye to me and that Facebook friend request. She had been stalking my brother and I after she found out who our grandparents were. That night, when she saw my grandma call her grandchildren to the stage, she got the confirmation she needed. She could not get with my brother because he was dating her friend, so she chose me. We also discovered that the reason Jennifer transferred from her previous college was because she got into trouble with a loan shark. Thankfully for me, I escaped her evil ways and was able to find out who she was before it was too late, and I married her. I still get goosebumps when I think about how foolish I was. But hey, life is a lesson after all. Update. I never expected my story to get as much attention as it did. Thank you to everyone who read this awful experience of mine and dropped their thoughts. The witch, that's what you all call Jennifer, Lo. She really is one. It's been 6 months, and I later discovered that Jennifer got steed too. I don't know how serious hers is, but I was told she moved out of town. Apparently, Jennifer had been cheating on me from the very first day we started dating. Luckily for me, she only started dating Greg months after I stopped seeing her. Jennifer got her karma. I really dodged a bullet, Lael. I hope you all learned something from my traumatizing experience. I have learned a lot from it. Life's better now that I don't have an emotional abuser with me. Thank you, people on Reddit. Your comments were helpful. Happy Easter.
My husband couldn't forgive my videotaped youthful mistake from 12 years ago. I never imagined that a naive decision I made when I was barely a responsible adult would come back and ruin my life. I urgently need advice on what to do because I have run out of options. My husband, Thomas, M38, is a very traditional and old-school man. He has strong beliefs on decency and modesty. I, F32, never thought a day would come when I would hate his mindset so much. I met my husband 8 years ago on the 13th of March, 2015 in Santa Monica, Los Angeles. I remember the exact day because it was my sister's birthday. I grew up in a middle-class family with 2 brothers and a sister. My parents pretty much calculated everything down to the last cent. We were always on a budget, so birthday parties were never a fun experience for us. This particular day was very different. My sister, Jane, had turned 20 and it was only right for us to celebrate her. She was already a college student by then, so she had made some new friends. She asked me and my brothers to get ready so we could go to a party. I had moved out of the house by then and was already in my final year of college. It was not Jane's birthday party, but she told us she would dance like it was. It was her friend's house party, and she asked Jane to invite as many people as she could. The party was full of drunk teenagers locking lips and swaying their hips to the music. I was not surprised, because that is what I expected a college freshman's house party to be like. We were lucky enough to get food and drinks because there had been more than enough provided. That was a big deal for us because we did not have to worry about what our bank balance would look like after the party. As expected at a freshman's party, things escalated and everything became chaotic. The music was extremely loud and the drunk teenagers were either arguing or making out. It already stank of sweat and puke, and I was ready to leave with my siblings. Before we even made it to the door, someone turned off the music. That caused a lot of commotion and everyone wanted to know who dared stop the music. It was definitely not the DJ because he was just as surprised. I remember not being able to see the face of the person who grabbed the mic and ordered everyone to leave. The lights were neon, so it was difficult to see properly. I was so curious that I walked towards the figure to see who it was. That was how I met Thomas. He stood there in his sweatpants and black hoodie holding the mic and cursing everyone out. He looked tired and sleepy. I stared at him for a very long time because I found his actions funny. Who in their right mind comes to a party wearing a hoodie and sweatpants? To make things worse, he had been wearing flip-flops. He looked almost comical, but what drew me to him was how confident he looked. I found him weird, but he stood like he found all of us weird. I remember how he caught me staring at him, raised his brows for a while before resuming his shouting marathon to get everyone out. I did not bother staying back anymore and followed my siblings out. That night, I later discovered that Thomas was Jane's friend's brother. He went out to jog for a while only to come home to a party. Jane's friend explained that her brother was quite strict and that he never allowed her to attend parties. I found Thomas weird and cool at the same time, but I never thought I'd see him again. To my surprise, my parents were friendly with him. He owned a grocery store where my parents usually bought groceries from. He owned more than one and was quite successful. I decided to visit his store one day because I was genuinely fascinated by his old school ways. I remember telling him I was also at the party and that I was a big fan of his. Luckily, he found my joke funny, and that was how our friendship began. We were friends for a few months and then I graduated from college. He offered me a job at his store and I took the job in a heartbeat. We saw each other every single day, and with time, we would flirt once in a while. 2 years later, we started dating officially and it was great. I liked him a lot and I admired his hard work and friendliness. During our years of dating, Thomas never kissed me in public or even attempted to flirt with me. He believed that private things should be kept private. I didn't really like that idea at first because I thought it was a little unfair, but as time went on, I discovered that Thomas was just really a man who liked his privacy. 1 year later, he proposed to me and of course, I accepted. Thomas was caring and extremely attentive to me. I did not agree with some of his ideologies, but I really loved him and was ready to make our marriage work. He already had more than a dozen stores and they were all doing well. He even gave me one and I started managing it for him. I was now earning enough to support my family and celebrate my birthday how I wanted. Life with Thomas was great as time went on. I began to understand my husband better and learned to tolerate some of his old school ways. 2 years after our marriage, I gave birth to my baby boy, Jaden. Thomas and I were extremely overjoyed and thankful for our baby's birth. Jaden became a breath of fresh air in our marriage and I became obsessed with my little boy. Everything was supposed to be perfect and I felt that it was, but something threatened to take that joy away. 2 months ago, on the 20th of February, I got a text from an unknown number. The sender asked me to take a bus to the park nearest to my house. I found the text quite strange, so I did not bother to reply or do as I was told. I brushed it off and concluded that it must be one of those jobless people online who just wanted to waste people's time. Only if I knew how wrong I was. Exactly 1 week later, that same number texted me again with the same message: "Take a bus to the park nearest to your house." I was surprised to see the message again, but I did not do anything about it. I just imagined that the sender would eventually get tired and leave me alone. But no, the sender kept texting. Another week later, I received the same text from the same sender, but this time, a threat was attached to it: "Ignore me all you want, but I will not be going away soon. It's either you come to me or I come to you. Trust me, you do not want me to find you." Those were the exact words I found in that text. I still have the messages on my phone. When I saw that text, I was scared. The funny part was that I did not know what I was scared of. It could have been a child playing a prank, but I was still scared. I contemplated showing the text to my husband, but I changed my mind. If it was really a prank, I didn't want to waste Thomas's time on something so trivial. He was a very busy man, and he usually came home tired. After another week of getting the same text, I decided to go to the park and see who the sender was. Thankfully, Thomas was not home the day I left. A part of me was worried because I did not know what to expect, so I wrote a note and dropped it on my nightstand. The note was meant for my husband. If I did not make it back alive, I was that scared. I wanted him to know where I went. That day, when I got off the bus, I met the shock of my life. The guy that was sitting on the bench was someone I never wanted to see in my life. It felt like a dream, and thinking about it now, it still feels like a dream. David, my ex-boyfriend, was the one who sat on the bench waiting for me. Immediately I spotted him. I wanted to run as fast as my legs could carry me, but I could not move. I was shocked to see him. When David lifted his head from his phone and spotted me, a dark smile appeared on his lips. I still remember how he leaned back on the bench and crossed his legs like he had won a lottery. I asked him why he had called me there, and he just shrugged his shoulders and told me he knew I'd come. I turned around to leave, but he grabbed my elbow and stopped me from walking any further. He told me he had something important to say to me and that I needed to hear what it was. I knew that I should not have waited, but I was curious. If he had gone through the trouble and dedicated a month to sending me messages, maybe he truly had something important to say. David only came to shatter my life and ruin the home I worked hard to build. He gave me his phone and asked me to watch a video. My video. Our video. It was a sex tape. Yes, you read that right. It was my sex tape. It was a video of me and David having sex at his house. We made that video when we dated many years ago. I was just 20 years old back then, and I thought I had met my husband. I was naive like all other young girls who thought they would marry their first boyfriends. I never thought that video still existed until then. Before David showed me the video, my mind never crossed it. It was such a long time ago that I forgot all about it. David and I were childhood friends who attended the same high school. We did not date until I was 18. He was the first guy I ever got intimate with. All my firsts were with David. I believed that I was honestly in love with him. I did everything he wanted me to do. He was my first boyfriend, so I wanted to please him. It did not help that David would also share his lunch with me once in a while. That was a big deal because it saved my lunch money. He would also get me little gifts once in a while. As a girl who grew up cherishing her last cent, I believed that David was all I needed in life. One day, David asked me to do a video with him. I initially thought it was just a normal video, but when I got to his house, he told me it was a sex video. His parents were not home and he was an only child, so we practically had the house to ourselves that day. It was almost like he planned it all. At first, I was against it because I didn't really like the idea of doing anything intimate in front of a camera, but David assured me that there was no difference. He told me to imagine the both of us alone without the camera. To be honest, I did not think it was a big deal back then. He was my boyfriend and I loved him. I agreed to make the video with him because a part of me was excited. Yes, I was excited at the concept of shooting an intimate video with David. We made the video that day and then we watched it together. I told David to delete the video that very moment because we already watched it and saw what it was like. He promised he would after he watched it one more time. I decided to wait and watch it with him before he deleted it, but then he got defensive and accused me of not trusting him. That made me change my mind because I did not want to upset him. I went back home and texted him later that day asking if he deleted it. He told me he did, and so I moved on and forgot all about it. Barely 2 months after we made the video, I caught David cheating on me, and so I broke up with him. I was really broken and hurt from the breakup. I could not believe that a guy that claimed he loved me so much could do that to me. It took me months to get over him, and I promised myself never to see him again. Thankfully, his parents got divorced, they raised a heartbreaker. And he moved to another country with his mother. I forgot all about David months later, and I moved on with my life. So, imagine my surprise when I met him at the park that day. Not only that, the fool had the audacity to show me our sex tape. A video he promised me he deleted was still on his phone. I practically cursed the life out of him and asked him to delete the video, but he refused. He threatened to show my husband the video if I didn't do as he said. Apparently, David's mother abandoned him when she could not afford the life of a single mother. David then went into the streets and joined a gang for survival. He got into trouble with a drug dealer and he needed to pay the sum of $10,000. David ran back to Los Angeles to hide, and when he heard I was now married to Thomas, he decided to blackmail me. I could not believe I dated a fool like him in my life. He wanted to use me as bait for a mistake he made? Where would I get $10,000 from? How could I take that kind of money without Thomas knowing? Even if I could, why would I give it to David? Those were the questions I asked myself all through the bus ride back home. I could barely sleep that night, and I was extremely scared. A sex tape coming out would ruin my life. I had a child to be a role model to. I had a husband that despised kissing in public. How would he react to a video of his wife having sex with another man? Those were the questions I kept asking myself as I thought about what to do. I told David to give me a week so I could arrange the money. 5 days later, I was able to get the money. I told my sister about it, and she was ready to go see David with me. When I got to the park with my sister, I was shocked to see my husband standing there with David. It felt like my whole world had shattered. When I ran there to demand answers, the look of disgust I saw on my husband's face told me everything I needed to know. David betrayed me and showed my husband the video when I promised to bring the money. My husband stormed out of the park without even sparing me a glance. My sister practically kicked David in between his legs and asked him why he told Thomas the truth when I already brought the money along. David said my husband showed up unannounced and met him there. Apparently, Thomas found the letter I left in the nightstand 5 days ago that day and decided to go see what made me so terrified. I forgot to throw the letter away the day I saw David. My husband found it when I went to Jane's place to ask her to accompany me to David. I was not home then, so he got worried and went to the park. David then decided to get double the money by showing my husband the video. I cursed David out and threw my bag at him. Of course, I did not give him the money. He ruined my life because of his greed. I cried my eyes out and laid helplessly on the floor. My sister was the one who took me back home and tried to help me speak to Thomas. Thomas ignored us and left the house angrily. It's been 3 weeks and he only comes to see our son and change his clothes. I've been miserable and depressed. I miss my husband and what our marriage used to be. I can't let a mistake I made 12 years ago ruin my whole life. Please, I need advice on what to do. I'm desperate and helpless. Update. Hi, it's been 2 months since I shared my story. Thank you to everyone who told me to be strong and assured me that I did nothing wrong and it was not my fault. Many of you said it's been 12 years and it happened way before I met my husband. Thank you to the people who told me how foolish I was for making a sex tape when I was that young. I was really foolish. Let me tell you all what happened in the past 2 months. Even after apologizing to my husband several times, he did not change his mind. He told me he could not stomach what he had seen and that he only married me because he thought I had morals. Yes, he said that. At first, I would show up at the shop and try to apologize all over again, but as time went on, I realized I had to let him go. I did not cheat on him. I just made a naive mistake. It was my past, a past I was not proud of, but I still don't understand how my husband could not let it go. I realized how different we were, and I knew that if he was the one in my position, I would not have a problem with it. One of my brothers was able to get his lawyer friend to sue David and get him to delete the video. I moved in with my sister and then I filed for divorce from my husband. Our divorce is still ongoing and we will have joint custody of our son. My family has been my rock during these hard times and I have survived thanks to them. My son is my focus now and I am dedicated to being a great mother. Though it was a tough experience, I'm glad it happened. Maybe I did not have the perfect marriage after all. I want to be with a man who isn't disgusted with showing his affection for me in public. I deserve better. Thank you to everyone who took time to encourage me, advise me, and judge me. It was all worth it for me.
I never thought I'd run to Reddit for advice, but here I am. I don't know the next step to take right now. My husband found out about my secret affair and then he set a trap for me and my app. My husband Vikram, funny 40, is the definition of an alpha male husband. He's a successful man who likes to be in charge. He never likes to lose control of a situation. So when he found out I was cheating on him, he found a way to make me regret it. My husband and I, Kamal, 32, have been married for the past 10 years. We have 2 children together, a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. I know a lot of people will feel the need to judge me for cheating on my husband when I have a complete family, but I have never really felt complete in my marriage. Marriage is supposed to make one feel complete, happy, and content, but I have never really experienced any of these things with my husband. Happiness became a strange feeling to me almost every day. The only light I was fortunate to see was the birth of my 2 children who completed me in a way, but even that too wasn't enough. When my children go to school, I'm welcomed by that feeling of emptiness all over again. It's not helped that the husband I married does not even notice that. He's a perfectionist who's focused on being at the top and keeping his 6 figures constant. I needed more, so I had to search elsewhere. It was a decision that took a lot of courage and self-doubt, but I had to do it for myself. What I never expected was the consequences that followed. I am a mixed woman from Mumbai, India. My mother is from Canada while my father is from India. Growing up with both ethnicities was a little bit of trouble for me. On one hand, I had my strict father who restricted almost all my activities, and on the other hand, I had my strict mother who did not want to restrict my activities just to spite my father. Yes. I practically grew up in a broken home with barely any love and attention. I grew up doing stupid things just to see if my mother would look into my eyes and tell me how much she cared for me. None of that ever happened. My father, he practically ignored my existence every single day. When I was old enough to get married, my father insisted that he would arrange my marriage for me. I did not want that. I just wanted to go to college, a place far away from my parents, then get my freedom and fall in love with a man I actually like. But none of those desires came true. I was to do exactly what my parents wanted me to do. I could not run away. They would have found me. My father worked at an airport. Of course, he had connections. How would I board a flight and not be seen? I had been desperate to get away, but I was not stupid. I ran to my mother for help, but she told me there was nothing she could do. The first and only time my mother was not ready to fight my father was when I needed her to fight him the most. She turned her back on me and did not look back. The first meeting with Vikram and his family was one of the most depressing moments of my life. Even though I knew I was getting into an arranged marriage, I still expected my husband to show me some sort of friendliness. Instead, Vikram was guarded. He did not even try to impress me. Yeah, I was dressed up extravagantly and forced to take etiquette classes so I could make an impression. 2 more meetings later, my marriage with Vikram was finalized. I had no say in it. I could not even choose the color I wanted to wear on my own wedding day. The man I was meant to marry had not even spoken a single word to me before our marriage. Like, I felt suffocated because I began to feel like I didn't truly deserve to be happy. I always thought my marriage would make up for all the happiness I lacked as a child. Vikram was good looking and wealthy, but none of that really mattered to me. I wanted to know who he was inside. I wanted to connect with my husband on an emotional level, but Vikram did not look like someone who was ready for that on our wedding day. My parents pulled me to the side and warned me not to do anything to ruin the wedding. They were afraid I'd change my mind and run away. I felt like laughing at that very moment. I thought they wanted to at least hug me and tell me how much they'll miss me. Even if it was a lie, I wanted to hear them say it. None of that happened. All I got was threats and unnecessary talks about being a dutiful wife. After the wedding, I was told that Vikram and I were going to move to Australia. Yes, I was only informed after the marriage. No one told me I'd be moving before the wedding. Maybe they thought it wasn't important since my opinion would not matter anyway. And my wedding was horrible. My wedding night had to be miserable. I was a virgin. Yes, I was a very shy virgin who hadn't even kissed a boy's cheek before. I did not know what to expect that night. So I was a nervous mess. When Vikram and I got to our hotel room, he just turned off the lights and went to sleep. No, I did not feel relieved. I felt stuck. It's not because he did not touch me. I didn't even know anything about sex back then. What hurt me was the fact that the man I married could not even start a conversation with me. I tried talking to him on our way to the hotel that night, but I could just tell that his replies were forced and uninterested. He did not even tell me good night before he laid down on the bed and fell asleep that night. As a girl who was already quite damaged, I felt like I had made the biggest decision in my life by marrying a stranger. Do you know what the worst part was? It was not even my decision at all. My parents chose him for me. When Vikram and I moved to Australia, I tried to start a new life there. Even though I was quite disappointed in the husband I got, I was determined to make our marriage work. I tried starting conversations with him, making jokes, and even disturbing him while he was busy working. So this worked for a while. And he warmed up to me a little. When I say he warmed up, I meant in his own little way. He would answer my questions, laugh at my jokes, and lean into my touches with time. We were friendly enough to start sleeping together. That was how I got my two wonderful children. Vikram and I would have sex 3 times a week or more if we wanted. We'd also talk about random things and joke with each other, but that was it. He was no longer a stranger physically and mentally, but emotionally he was. For many months, I felt like I was greedy for not feeling complete. I felt like he was trying his best to warm up to me, yet I was the one who wasn't satisfied. I actually felt guilty for not being happy. It's something I struggled with internally for a long time. I actually began to hate myself because I was a housewife who just stayed home and awaited her husband's return just so she could feel validated. I saw my daughter and son brought some light into my life when they were born. Their births were 2 years apart, but they play like twins. I love them with every single vein in me. They stopped my emotional problems for a while, but even that was temporary. When they were old enough to go to school, my loneliness came back. I would dwell in my sad thoughts for hours before they returned. What I struggled most with was understanding what love meant. I grew up without love, so I could never really understand what it was or recognize when I was at the receiving end of it. For a long time, I thought my husband loved me and I loved him too, but one day I realized that all we had was an understanding, and understand that we were stuck together for life. So we better not make each other's life difficult. That was when I made my decision. I took the first independent step of my whole life 2 years ago when my husband came back from work, and I told him I wanted to start going to college. He was surprised at my request and did not even take me seriously until I told him the same thing 2 days later. At first, he tried to talk me out of it and talk about how the children needed me, but I told him the children had school and extra lessons. He told me that he earned enough to take us a lifetime, so I should not bother getting into college. He insisted that college was important for me, and it was not about getting a career to make money. After a lot of deliberation and a series of phone calls, yes, he called my parents and his parents to ask for permission. I was finally allowed to start college. When I started college, a part of me felt light and happy. I was already 30 then, but I did not care. I now had something to look forward to every day. I made new friends and learned to laugh a little. College felt like a place to spread my wings and fly as high as I wanted. One day after classes, a guy named Freed, 1828, offered to give me a lift. I politely declined because I already had a car that was designated to drive me home, but Fred was not ready to take no for an answer. He got out of his car and practically begged me to let him give me a ride. I found the situation funny and ridiculous, so I declined once again and left in my designated car. For that day, Fred kept offering me a ride home. At some point, after 2 weeks, I sent my car back and gave in. Feed was so happy. There had been a huge smile on his face. We chatted during the ride home, and Honestly, felt nice to meet someone new. Fred drove me home the weeks that followed after that. It was not a problem because Vikram was not usually home till 9 p.m. in the night. I closed from college at 5 p.m. Fred and I became friends after 1 month of getting to know each other. It felt nice to have a friend, someone to talk to, and someone who actually wanted to know you without a reason behind it. I could tell that there was a physical attraction between us. But I tried to brush it off because I was still very married to Vikram. I really did. But for a woman who had been deprived of real love all her life, my resistance was not strong enough. One day, Fred and I kissed in this car. From that day on, we exchanged kisses in the car, from kisses to tight hugs, then smooching on day sex. The day it happened, I'd been so shocked that I did not move for a long time. Yes, it happened in his car. It was at that moment I realized I really didn't love my husband, because after it happened, I did not feel any form of regret or shame. I felt liberated and full. I liked it so much I was not afraid to do it again. Fine. It's not something I'm ashamed of saying because I deserve to be happy. I deserve to live a content life. Fred and I continued our secret relationship for 1 more year. I told him I was married long before we got intimate, but he didn't really care. He was okay with the secret moments we shared. Began to smile more and live life more purposefully thanks to Fred, but one day it all broke into pieces. On this fateful day, my designated driver came to pick me up. It was an unusual occurrence because I had asked him to stop coming since I usually went home with Fred. The driver insisted and told me he had to drive me home that day. Fred had invited me to his house, so I did not want to disappoint him. I refused to follow my driver and went to Fred's house. My husband was on a business trip and my kids were at Vikram's sister's place, so I did not plan on going back home. Fred cooked dinner for both of us, lit candles, and played some very nice music. It felt like I was in a dream, and to be honest, I didn't really want to wake up. I felt genuinely happy after a long time. I liked the feeling of content I had in that moment. I shared with Fred. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but everything that happened to me in my life had been wrong. I wanted to be selfish for once in my life. I wanted to choose myself, and I did just that. Had a passionate night with a man that was not my husband. The next morning, I woke up in Fred's t-shirt. I was thirsty and went to grab some water to drink from the kitchen. I remember hearing a knock on the door. And when I opened the door, I was shocked to see Vikram standing there. He looked like he could kill me at that moment. I was too shocked to move or say a word. I could see the anger in his eyes that day. The way he glared at me and pushed me out of the way. Fred ran downstairs to see what was happening, and that was when he met Vikram. Vikram punched Fred till he was bleeding. I had been so scared that I started to scream. I got the shock of my life when I saw my designated driver at the door with 2 policemen. That was when everything seemed to make sense. I realized that Vikram must have noticed that I no longer used my designated driver, so started to keep an eye on me. He lied that he was going on a business trip. He just wanted to follow me and catch me red-handed. The driver had followed Fred's car the night before and told Vikram the address. It was a trap. Vikram found out I was cheating on him, so he set a trap for me and Fred. Vikram always wanted to be in control no matter what. I cheated and got out of his control, so he wanted to catch me in the act his own way. I thought that was all, but Vikram had me and Fred arrested. I know some of you might wonder who gets arrested for cheating. Well, Fred and I got arrested, but it was not for cheating. The police found drugs in Fred's garden and in his car, so we were arrested for the illegal possession of drugs. Of course, it was all framed by Vikram. Fred had a heart condition and could not even smoke. Touted drugs, suddenly appears, and then Vikram was right there to notice it. Our explanations fell on deaf ears and we were detained for 3 days. It was Fred's friend that got us out on bail. That was 2 months ago. Vikram sent me packing and I was served with divorce papers immediately. The only thing I'm worried about now is my children. They mean a lot to me. I don't want Vikram to get full custody in court. What should I do? Should I beg him to take me back for the sake of my children? Please help me. Update. So it's been a year and I decided to add an update since a lot of people read my story. Fred and I are still together. I live with him. I'm still in college trying to finish up and get a job. Fred has been helpful and he's been taking good care of me. Vikram tried his best to get full custody of our children. He even used his wealth, but the court concluded that the children needed me in their lives. We now co-parent cordially and try to maintain a civil relationship for our children. My parents called me just to disown me over the phone when they found out what happened. but I didn't really care. They were never really loving parents to begin with. The first few months after getting caught were horrible, but I took each day seriously and fought my way out. My life is not perfect, but at least for the first time in my whole existence, I chose myself. That's all that matters to me. I now understand what care and love means. I'd rather live a fulfilled life with nothing than an empty one with everything. I lost my wealthy husband, but I got my peace and happiness, which is priceless. I hope my journey to freedom inspires someone else. The journey ends here, guys. Goodbye.